Coming up in the next hour, it is time for Consumer Talk with Wendy Knowler, and she joins us in studio this afternoon. We've got a lot to talk about. The main thread of the conversation is going to be about travel plans that you find yourself needing to cancel and what your rights are with regards to that. Good afternoon, Wendy. Welcome to studio.
Thanks, Amy. Good to be here.
Lovely to see you as always. If I can just start by asking what prompted this conversation in particular for today?
Well, the usual thing, and that is the emails, one in particular that I get from listeners. So, I thought it was very much worth taking a look at what people's rights are because, we make bookings in advance for all the lovely things in life, weddings and holidays. And at the time, most of us, if you don't have a sort of doom mental state around that, you're not thinking too much about what would happen if you had to cancel for some reason. But my job makes me very much that person that does think that way. Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Well, you have to.
And whenever you make a booking and make a payment, it's usually around 50%, right? You need to ask the questions. What does that mean? What is that? What are the terms of those deposits? So most people cheerfully think that should life happen and they need to cancel, they'll just get that money back. But it doesn't work like that. So the time to ask these questions and ponder these things is before you click confirm on that booking and pay your money, pay your deposit. In some cases, it's the full amount, but that's seldom advisable, right? So how it should work is, first of all, if you ever see no refunds, then walk away because that service provider, that company is not complying with the Consumer Protection Act. There can be no blanket, no refund policy on the paying of a deposit, right? You're looking like, really? Because,
if it's not compliant with the Consumer Protection Act, surely you're not allowed to say that.
Yeah,
no
they
refunds.
do. And where's the enforcement? I mean, there isn't enough enforcement, right?
Me.
So that's we can't rely on companies complying with the CPA. Some of the very big ones with reputations that they would rather like to protect, yes. But even then, you've got to check because they'll take a chance, either unknowingly or knowingly. But I mean, that's what gives me this job, right? So we'll get to the nitty-gritties in a moment, but essentially how it works is, and it's all around fairness to both parties. So yes, the Consumer Protection Act says you may cancel what the Act terms an advance booking, but and get your money back. But the service provider is entitled to charge a reasonable cancellation penalty. Now that's where the problem comes because
What's reasonable?
That came into effect in the CPA 11 years ago, and you can imagine the number of cases I've handled around cancel, especially with COVID. And what the service provider thinks is reasonable is almost always not what the consumer thinks is reasonable. Sometimes it's somewhere in between, right? You can't expect all your money back if you cancel a booking at the last minute, say a wedding, and you cancel it. I'm not talking about COVID when it's beyond your control. I mean, you decide. You wouldn't believe how many weddings are cancelled for a variety of reasons, by the way. But we're talking travel, but that too. You can't expect a last-minute cancellation to result in you getting all your money back. That's not fair. That the law is there to protect both parties. So how it should work is on a sliding scale.
Yeah.
So the greater opportunity that service provider has of being able to get a rebooking, the greater the refund should be. So if you cancelled a week, a month, 2 months, whatever, after you've made the booking, and it's also important how much time is very important. The most important thing is how much time is left until the supposed departure of your flight or your wedding or your hotel accommodation or whatever. If you give them a long time to rebook, obviously your deposit should be greater, and it should all be laid out by the establishment. If you cancel a month before, no refund or 5% refund or whatever, going back up to if you cancel shortly after you make your booking, or if there's a long lead time for us to get another booking in the place of yours, then you'll get 80% back, or whatever the case may be. And then you can decide, am I happy with this or not?
Why would you not, if you cancel in good enough time, Wendy, why would you not get a full refund? I don't understand why an establishment needs to profit from your cancellation, because if you made a booking and you've paid a certain amount and then they don't give you a full refund and somebody else takes that booking, they've now got 130% or
Exactly.
150%.
But at the time that they're required to refund you, they don't know that, to be honest. And then you get a grey area of which also comes up in the case study we're about to share, where they'll say we'll refund you, but only if you get another booking, and that's also not in keeping with they cannot make it dependent on.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do and think that that's fair. Okay, so let's get to the case study. A property rental agent in Hart Bay emailed me recently, last week I think, about a situation which was clearly bothering her a great deal. She wrote, a client booked accommodation at the beginning of the year with the owner of an apartment for the period 15th of December to 6th of Jan. So that's 3 weeks, and they're about the most peak weeks that you can get.
Holiday season.
Absolutely prime. He paid a 50% deposit, 50,000 Rand.
Sure.
And was told that this was non-refundable. Now, as I've just said, that is the first red flag.
Red flag.
It's illegal. It's unfair. Never proceed with a booking from this point, no matter how badly you want to rent a property or anything else. I would say half a point to the either the letting agents or the it can't have been the letting agent, the property owner, for at least disclosing it up front. So it wasn't a surprise, which it often is when the person cancels. The agent continued, they have, however, bought a house now and will be taking occupation on the 1st of December. We let the owner of the holiday accommodation know at the beginning of August that the client would like to cancel their booking. The owner of the house is now insisting that there will be no refund. Our question to you is whether this is fair. We have quite a few inquiries coming in through our letting agency, and more than 4 months' notice has been given. The client offered to pay a 10,000 Rand cancellation fee. The owner is not willing to even try and find a replacement booking and does not want us to try and get a replacement either. We let guests off the hook on condition that we find a replacement for their booking. As I said, that's not strictly 100% SCPA compliant either. We are struggling to understand why this owner will not do the same. And of course, I'm struggling a lot with that too. Not only is it grossly unfair, holding on to a couple's 50,000 Rand, despite a cancellation of just over 4 months in advance of arrival for 3 weeks in the peakest of peak times.
When there are other inquiries coming in.
Easily relatable. Yeah. My guess is, to be honest, that they aren't, that they are going to relet, or that that place won't be empty. There will be
they'll relet, but they'll still keep the money.
Or they might use it themselves, but the point is they're not entitled to. That's profiteering, right? It's profiteering.
Of course.
They're not willing to even look at a relet, which is not okay. But as always, I turned to Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman Makgate Mpatlele for the legal position, in her view, given that, as I said, I'm pretty sure that others will be facing this situation. You make very early bookings for December, for the festive season, and there's a lot of life that can happen in between, and you're left with a situation where you want to cancel, and now comes the debate around the refund of the deposit. So Makgate began by saying, there is an obligation. Sorry, where did she say? Yes, she began with this very important piece of information, which is where the supplier wants to withhold the full deposit paid, they must prove that the actual losses, keyword actual losses, suffered as a result of the cancellation amount to 50,000 Rand. I'd like to see that person try and do that. It's impossible.
Yeah, how can you?
There is an obligation on the supplier to find a replacement. If there are any proven advertising costs, for example, to find a replacement, these must be proven and then charged the consumer. So I've said this a lot over the years, but I think it's really, really worth repeating. It cannot be a thumbsuck, well, we are keeping this, let alone the whole lot, but we are keeping 25,000 Rand of your money. Okay, this is why. These are our direct actual costs. Right? The idea is not to enrich the person. The idea is to compensate them for any direct financial result, knock on from somebody cancelling a confirmed
but that's what
booking.
I was saying to you at the start of the show. Why should they, as you say, enrich them or profit from...
And you wouldn't believe how many service providers think they're perfectly entitled to do that. As I say, the opposite of that coin is a family cancelling at the last minute, cancelling on the 8th of December, say, for a 15th of December finances didn't pan out, whatever, and expecting that whole 50,000 rand back. That is also not fair, right? We get extremes, extremely unfair expectations on both sides. So, as for determining what is reasonable as a cancellation fees, this, once you accept that you can't withhold all the money, CPA's Section 17 states that a charge is unreasonable if it exceeds a fair amount in the circumstances, having regard to, don't you love legalese, Amy, the nature of the goods or services that were reserved or booked. So now you have a holiday accommodation in a prime holiday spot at a prime time. The length of notice of cancellation provided by the consumer, more than 4 months. The reasonable potential for the service provider acting diligently. So they can't just say, well, I asked around for 2 days and
nobody wanted the accommodation. Yeah.
So acting diligently to find an alternative consumer between the time of receiving the cancellation notice and the time of the cancelled reservation and the general practice of the relevant industry. Now, in all three of those counts, I think it's fair to say that only a very small amount should have been deducted in this case as a cancellation penalty for this couple. What happened in the end was I fed that information through to the agent. She confirmed to the owner of the accommodation that it's not in keeping with the CPA and it's unfair, and they said, so sorry for that, too bad.
No.
And yes, so that couple has lost 50,000 rand on a holiday that they.
And that owner's not budging.
No.
Is there no recourse?
So
Wendy?
I've strongly suggested that they take it up with the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, and I will keep tabs on that one, should they feel inclined to do it. But yeah, I felt that was such a surprising rollover on 50,000 rand. I mean,
sure,
yeah.
I don't know how some people sleep at night.
There's one other big proviso here is there can be absolutely no deduction or no cancellation penalty imposed if the cancellation happens as a result of the person who made the booking or the person for whom the booking was made is either dies or is hospitalized. And that would need to be proved. But I've intervened in many cases where that's happened, and the person has subsequently got a refund. So yeah, I think it's it pays to know these things. Knowledge is power, and money. I asked Machata, the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, I asked her about that rental agent's policy of we let guests off the hook on condition that we find a replacement for their booking. I said that's not strictly compliant with the CPA, is it? Machata Mhlele's response was rental agents have an obligation to act diligently to find a replacement. The cancellation penalty charge should not have the effect of negating the consumer's right to cancel a fixed-term consumer agreement. As afforded by the Act, they are also obliged to disclose the cancellation penalties and notice periods in the rental agreement. It was vaguer than I would have liked, but I think it's certainly the case that you can't make the refund minus whatever cancellation penalty dependent on there being a replacement booking. Because otherwise, I mean, in this case, would you keep the person hanging for 4 months? No. I think in many cases where cancellation penalties are charged, quite large ones, as you said, the function room, the accommodation, whatever it is, does get relet at full price, and so that supplier, as the CPA calls it, has in effect enriched, has actually done better out of the deal than had the original booking gone ahead. So it's all about balancing both parties' needs. But I just thought I'd share this case because clearly keeping 50,000 rand of that couple's money under the circumstances can never be legally or morally justified. And also to bang home the message is that whenever you pay a deposit, find out what the terms and conditions are. If you smell no refund, if it's a blanket policy that they don't refund even if you cancel tomorrow kind of thing, the day after making the booking, then really step away. And if there's nothing said about it, find out and get it in writing. If I cancel, a month before, 5 months before, 8 months before, depending on how early you've booked for whatever, get these things thrashed out before you pay so that there isn't this kind of drama when the thing that you least expected happens and you have to cancel.
So I think as shocked as I am by the story that you've just told us, that for me is the big takeaway, is that know upfront what kind of refund options, or
never assume you're just going to get all your money back.
And as you say, if it states up there no refunds, red flag, walk away. And if it doesn't state, make sure that you find out. And we're certainly getting a lot of listener reaction now to the story. And Judy says, why not name and shame them? It's absolutely shocking.
I actually don't know which. I wasn't given details of the owners of this establishment. I shared it on condition that I didn't divulge any names. I just felt it was important enough to know. But trust me, this is not unusual. This is why I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
So make no assumptions. Even, and whether it's holiday accommodation or anything else, anytime you are asked to make a deposit in lieu of a booking for something that you are going to benefit from down the line, ask those questions and ask it on email or WhatsApp or something so you have some record.
Yeah. Obi, you've got a voice note for us on this matter.
Hi, just a note. Under certain circumstances, it's fair for the agent to actually charge a portion of their commission, considering that they've done potentially a substantial amount of work, finding the tenant, showing them the property, and then the person cancels, where that agent could have rented it to any number of other people who had viewed. So I think the agent is entitled to a portion of their commission, not necessarily the whole amount, but certainly something to compensate them for the wasted time.
Yeah, and I would agree. And she was not speaking for herself. I assume that she would have kept some of that 50,000 rand. Remember, the couple was willing to pay 10,000 rand, which is
for
really,
inconvenience.
I would have
said
generous. 5,000 would have been appropriate. But again, as long as it can be substantiated. So, this amount of admin work, nobody expects people to work for nothing. And I couldn't agree more with that. They would definitely, now they have to advertise again, but again, it needs to be substantiated. And in most cases, it's just a thumb suck. Which is not acceptable, and I think it's really important for people to know that if they said, all right, if they cancel and they're told we're keeping X amount, thank you very much. In terms of the Consumer Protection Act, you are required to substantiate that. Please, could you clarify how you arrived at that figure? I think consumers need to start knowing their rights and very politely stating, this is what what the Act says, and I'd appreciate your response.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, well, let's leave that one there, Wendy, and we'll rely on you to bring us updates if there are any on that saga. Let's move on to talking about flight insurance. Is it worth it? I am one of those consumers that never takes out flight insurance. Oh, I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it's the flights are so expensive, especially at the moment. I'm not going to pay that extra bit for insurance.
Yes. I think many others are the same. Because of my job, I hear from people day in and day out for whom things have gone very wrong. So I tend to, if there is insurance, like if I hire a car, which is very seldom because the risks are so huge, I will pay extra for the super waiver, which does burn. But if something goes wrong, and it doesn't have to be your fault.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be in really a lot of financial trouble if you don't, that kind of thing. But with flight insurance, I'm a bit iffy, depending on my mood. So anyway, but someone that does routinely take out insurance when he flies is Shabir. And so he was booking 4 tickets on a Safair flight departing Cape Town International in mid-June of this year. It was for himself and 3 of his staff members. He paid extra for the flight delay insurance. And as it happened, that flight was delayed for 3 hours. Instead of departing at 10 to 9 in the morning, it eventually took off at 10 to 12. So he lodged a claim with Fly Safair and was referred to Chubb, who provides that insurance cover. He said in his email to me, Chubb requested a flight delay letter from Fly Safair via me. I sent the first request for this letter on the 18th of July, and subsequent requests for this letter have not been attended. He sent me all of that correspondence, email after email of him saying, please can I have this letter. I only receive an automated response saying that they are inundated with requests for this letter, which is a weird response for an airline who boasts about having a 97% on-time record, he said. We have flown this route 4 times since this date, and as a small business, this compensation could have assisted us with reducing costs for other flights. Any assistance would be appreciated. So I did take up the case, and FlySafe's response is from their Chief Marketing Officer, Kirby Gordon, is good news for Shabir as well as others who do have a legitimate claim on that policy. And it went like this. The travel protection policies we sell on our website are administered and underwritten by Chubb Insurance, which is obviously a third-party company, much like First Car Rental Cars, or the Bidvest Lounge Access vouchers, which we sell. Once the policy is taken out, the client receives policy wording, etc., directly from Chubb, and the relationship effectively moves between the two parties, should there be a need for claims. There is delay cover in the Chubb product sold on our website. The offer is 400 Rand per 3-hour delay period, up to a maximum of 3,000 Rand. That's per passenger. So having been delayed by 3 hours, those passengers would have qualified, well, Shabir would have qualified for a total payment of 1,600 Rand. This customer, he said, Kirby lodged its claim with Chubb, which is correct, and the Chubb person replied saying they need a letter confirming the flight delay. And he says things have gone wrong in getting the letter from us. It's a standard letter to issue, and there's no reluctance or impact on our part to issuing it. We do them regularly. It does seem like our process to get it sent off to this person did fail, though. I'm making sure it's being sent off now. And then he said something really encouraging and which would help others. So thank you, Shabir, for raising this case. He says this is actually something we're looking to automate. We send out SMS notifications on delays, which to my mind should satisfy Chubb that a delay took place. But they want letters on letterhead, so we're trying to build some development that the system just automatically sends out a letter to any insurance policy holder that was on a delayed flight. So it has to be minimum 3 hours, right? So that they will automatically have this at hand, which I think would be a wonderful development. And something to bear in mind. And that does also just give you an idea of what sort of compensation you're looking at, because we've all been in that situation where our flights have been delayed. So only from 3 hours onward, and obviously only if you have
the insurance.
Paid extra for the insurance. Yeah.
But well done to FlySafe on that one.
Well done. And also thank you, Shabir, for flagging it with me. Because
must give credit where credit is due.
Yes, I'm all for that. So, yeah, there you have it.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on Cape Talk.